In this video, I'm going to talk briefly about several broad categories of ratios. And I should perhaps preface this by noting that this is not an exhaustive list of all the possible categories of ratios you could conceivably look at, but these are some of the most common and most used categories of ratios. So first off, let's look at liquidity ratios. Liquidity ratios are measuring the ability to meet short-term obligations with liquid current assets. So basically, we have a few characteristics here that are important for this. One, the time to convert the asset to cash. So this has to be something that we can convert to cash in a short term. So in other words, generally, less than a year, give or take. And two, the certainty of cash received. In other words, not only can I convert it to cash within approximately a year or less, but generally I'm going to receive pretty much full value for this or pretty close. So the certainty of cash received is very high, and I can convert it to cash very easily. So that's the idea behind it being liquid. So I'm going to look at those assets relative to the obligations that are coming due within that next year and try to determine, do I have enough money available, enough resources to meet those short-term obligations, or am I going to run into trouble, basically? The next category we're going to look at is financial leverage or debt management ratios. And this is all about how much debt do we have? Are we able to handle the debt that we have by making the payments and servicing it and so forth? So it's all about basically, do I have the ability to service the debt that I've got? How much debt have I got? And what kind of ability might I have to handle additional debt? And if you think about it, every business is financed by some mixture of debt, preferred equity, and common equity, right? So those are the three main ways, okay? So basically, if that's where all my capital is coming from, and that's back to the accounting equation, assets equals liabilities plus, owner's equity, and owner's equity would include preferred and common equity, right? And so we got debt, preferred, and common, all right? So those are our three ways of buying those assets. So it's all going to be about, all right, what mixture of those did I use to pay for the assets? And that's going to dictate essentially how much debt I've got and my ability to handle that, and then my ability to actually to service it and or possibly handle more. Then we're going to look at the asset utilization or activity ratios. So this is looking at essentially the efficiency in using our assets. So most commonly, we're going to be relating our assets to sales in some form or fashion. In some cases, we're looking at how fast we're collecting a receivable, or in some cases, we're looking at how many dollars of sales am I generating with each dollar of assets or net fixed assets, things like that. So it's how often am I turning over my inventory? So it's all about using my assets and generating sales or collecting the sales or things of that nature. And so it's all about basically that connection between assets and sales and collecting it and so forth. And obviously we would want to be more efficient, right? But there are limits to that in the sense that if I ran my factory just flat out, 24 hours a day at above optimal speed, I mean, I can generate the most sales possible with those assets. But the downside with that is this would not be a sustainable situation. And that would also mean that if I'm running at just absolutely maxed out capacity, if somebody walked into my business and wanted to place a big order, I mean, I'm already maxed out. I mean, where am I going to get the capacity to do that? So there would be some limits for that as well. Then we start talking about the profitability ratios. So there are various measures of return. So I can look at profitability relative to sales, profitability relative to assets, profitability relative to equity. There are a variety of different ways that I can sort of measure the return. But one way of thinking about profitability ratios is that, in a way, they are sort of the net effect of the other ratios. So my efficiency in utilizing those assets, the efficiency in using the appropriate levels of debt, maintaining enough liquidity that I don't go bankrupt or something of that nature. And so really what we're kind of looking at with the profitability ratios is the net effect of how I'm managing my business and what that's meaning in terms of profitability. And really what we're trying to sort of start to get to there is the idea that we need to make sure that we're maximizing long-term shareholder wealth. So are we achieving that? Because if we're not achieving that, then we've missed out on our goal. And so we need to be kind of careful about that. And we need to make sure that not only are we achieving that maximization of long-term shareholder wealth, but that we're doing it in a healthy manner, in a sustainable manner. So these are the main broad categories of ratios that I'll emphasize in subsequent videos here. But basically, they give you a pretty good picture of the overall condition of the firm. If I start looking at liquidity and financial leverage and asset utilization and profitability, I put all that stuff together, it gives me a much better view of the health of the organization. And that's important when doing financial statement analysis. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully this video has been helpful. Have a great day.